Hey everyone, I'm Karen Walby Solomon, and welcome to What's IGN Crushing On, IGN Africa's official entertainment podcast. I'm your host, and I'm joined as always by my producer and editor Rebecca Barches. So this is a show where we discuss all things entertainment and pop culture with a new guest every week. We bring recommendations, news, and fun facts, sometimes touching on the more serious issues surrounding these topics.
The man Glenn Fortune has many sides. Friend, mentor, and icon.
Sê dankie aan my familie. Jou eises is met julle gebou.
The whole nightclub industry is taking a hit. It's evaporating. And if you look closely at the world that's coming up, we own most of that.
Jou eises is hier vir Sally. Weet jy hoeveel backroom casinos operate reg oor die Kaap? Is 'n multi-million rand revenue stream.
Ek gaan nie my bullets vir jou vat as jy nie kan eerlik wees.
This is about paying off debt and you can stop your operations immediately.
Ja, maar wat het jy gaan soek?
Die geld wat sy my gepromise het.
Jy weet daai Adams het 'n reputation. Hulle sien ons is tipe mense nie. Dis so baie secrets hier.
Mens kry 'n manier om dit uit te blok. Daar's 'n man wat jy gedink het jy ken. Hy was die Glenn Fortune.
Elke droom het 'n prys, soos jy altyd gesê het.
That was the trailer of Skemerdans. It's currently available to watch on Showmax. Later on in the episode, we have an interview with actor Kevin Smith, who plays the role of Glenn Fortune in the series. But before we get there, we want to chat about our Discord server, where you can chat with us and other listeners about various things that we talk about on the show, from movie, TV, book, and music recs. We used to share some of our favorite things there, discuss news and more, but we will link to it in the show notes. So please join in. It's a lot of fun. You can chat to other people who are genuinely interested in the same things as you. And you can spoil as much as you want, which is the best thing. We also wanted to say thank you to our listeners who got us charting. Yay! We were last week's episode was the most listened to episode in South Africa in the category TV and film. We are so overwhelmed. It was charting in Nigeria and New Zealand as well. Thank you for all your support. We are so grateful to you. Yeah. So let's get into this week. This week on the show, we chatted to actor Anton Taylor. You know him from Tali's Wedding and Baby Diaries and Josie Shores. And he was just such a lovely person to chat to. He was so full of energy. And everybody knows me, knows that I'm kind of like low energy type human. And then his energy really brought out, you know what I mean? I felt more excited at the end of it. We spoke about Tali and the show. And we spoke about the time he didn't get the lead in the Grease musical at school, which I find hilarious. And when he met Carly Rae Jepsen, Rebecca, I think at one point he thought I was just agreeing with him for the sake of agreeing with him. But I don't think he understands how much I love pop music. So when he was talking about how much how amazing Carly Rae Jepsen, he thought I was gonna be like, no, she's not. But I was like, yes, of course she is.
Yeah, she is.
And I think for a second he was like, is this girl
Yeah.
I was like, oh, she is amazing. That's a great story. Listen to what he has to say about it. But yeah, here's our chat with Anton. Anton, thank you for coming onto the podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, man. I'm just legitimately stoked to be here. I'm excited.
So how has this year been for you? The pandemic.
Yo. I think everybody's insane year. I think the more you start talking to people, the more you realize, everybody had their own versions of hardship, and everybody dealt with a lot of stuff. It seems like a common thing I notice. A lot of people, their friendship group changed. You know, people had stresses in a different way. Yeah, I mean, it was just a crazy year. And what was really nice was there were some difficult times, and I remember, you know, I'd lost all my employment, and it didn't seem as if there was any, you know, work on the horizon. And I was thinking, sure, you know, what am I gonna do with my life? And I was like, I'm not going to be able to work in TV again. I was like, I'm going to have to become like, I do boxing. I'm an amateur a boxer, but I was like, I don't think I can like good enough to go pro. And then at the time as well, it was just like, you know, winter, and people in my complex, like people were just being grumpy, and it was just like cuck and just bleak. And then I got this phone call, and I was like, oh, Tali. So like, I mean, Tali's Wedding Diary came out in 2017. And like, I remember at the time being like, you know, oh, this is it. Like, you know, finally, after years of hacking, I'm like an actor, and like I've made it, and blah, blah, blah. And then there was just no acting work like ever again. And they basically had said, look, you know, there's not going to be a season 2. There was a bit of a deadlock between, I think, I don't know, there were just some reasons why I couldn't go ahead. But luckily I was working as a commentator, so I had something to fill that kind of space. And then COVID came, and then obviously there was no rugby. And I also thought like, sure, you know, there won't be TV stuff. So yeah, it was like insane. Like, we were in Tali's season 2, which was like a dream. We filmed that in November, December.
Oh, wow.
Just to complete the year, we were the only production not shut down because of COVID. I was also like chief COVID cop, but literally the day after we finished, I got a sore throat, and I was like, oh. So I got COVID, which, not to make light of it, but like for me, I just like lost some weight. I had a very easy experience with it. I wish COVID hadn't happened, of course. You know, it's terrible, but you know, in life you do what you can with what you have, and I do think that I hope that I've come out of it a more, I don't know, compassionate person. And yeah, I think many people will if they use the experience positively. Yeah.
So I've been told to ask you, but tell us, tell the listeners about what you did to entertain the people in your complex during the lockdown.
So like, I honestly just wanted to like help, you know. And I remember that time when COVID came, one felt really powerless. And I think, you know, there were all these people who were just like suffering, and you know, there was nothing you could do. You just had to sit in your flat and just, you know, wish for the best, you know, and hope everyone was okay. And if you weren't a medical worker, you couldn't do anything. And I think for me, that once again like shaped my belief that if you make one person's life happier, that matters. And so, you know, we can't all be doctors saving lives, but if you just, you know, smile at someone and say a kind word, and that makes them, like, you know, before the recording, you gave me a very nice compliment about something I'd once written. And that makes a difference, you know, that makes, you know, that made me feel really happy. So I think what we did was, you know, it started off where I think across like Cape Town or South Africa at 8 p.m. they started to do the, you know, at 8 p.m. they would cheer or whatever. Mm-hmm. And in my complex, it's quite nicely suited in that it's an amphitheater kind of. It's two buildings that look onto each other with a big lawn. And so we did it the first day, and you know, it was quite remarkable because in this complex, none of us had ever spoken to each other, and sort of we didn't know each other, and everyone was grumpy and just, you know, classic Cape Townians, you know, greet each other. So I knew about like 4 people here. And then all of a sudden we all just like, for a period, like we had this honeymoon period, we became best friends. And I was like, should we just cheer every night? And they were like, yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do that. So I would play a song. There would be a credo. We would say, you know, because the focus was always on the cheer for the essential workers, you know, that was honestly what it was about. And I was just very cautious of it sounding like I didn't want it to be like middle-class people on their balconies, like giving themselves like a clap on the, you know, on the back. So we would have the applause, and then we would play, I'd play like a song afterwards. And it was at 8 p.m. every night. Yeah. And it was, there were challenges, and I did it for 200 days, every single day.
Sure.
And it's because I'd said I would, you know, and, you know, it was a stressful time. And I, you know, what I started to do then was I started to write stories of essential workers and to share them and to make the cheer dedicated to individual essential workers, because I really wanted to make the focus on the essential people, because I just felt around South Africa there were all these people who were holding the country together that just weren't being at all appreciated, you know, and like, you know, tailors who were scared, you know, who had to get taxis while everyone else was at home. And so it was challenging because, you know, it was a stressful time, and like, you know, 1 or 2 people all of a sudden get grumpy because of a noise. And I think because it was a time of powerlessness, they would like focus on, oh, this noise is now like, it was 5 minutes of noise every evening. But I think it made a lot of people happy. You know, there was really some magical things. I mean, we're talking about like a complex with like, I don't know, like all the lights and everyone at the balcony with waving lights and stuff. And there were some moments that I'll cherish, you know, and my forever. And my brain works in that I tend to forget the kind of unpleasant cuck stuff, and I just focus on the cool things. And what was really nice was I met some amazing people, you know, during the lockdown, and yeah, so it was a crazy cool thing. I mean, playing a song every night at 8 p.m. Yeah, even just logistically, like at 7 p.m. you start getting anxious. And I had like a WhatsApp group with like, it was insane, with like all the residents, but I was the only one who could send messages. So it was sort of like I don't know, like a state controlled, like just one way, me sending like so I'd write like every single day at 7:30, I'd send out a little message with a poem or something like that. And then we'd play the song and cheer. So it was just crazy, but it was, I wouldn't change a thing. Yeah.
So tell me, let's get back to your career. But
yes.
So was acting always part of the plan for you?
Yes, I think so. You know, I always loved being creative. I loved using words. So it was acting, writing, and sort of speaking. But I did always want to be an actor. Always wanted to be an actor. And, you know, as a kid, I really wanted to be an actor, which makes it so surreal when you're like doing this thing that you dreamed of. And like at school, I was in the school plays, and, you know, I don't know if my career, I don't know how much it has to do with talent. You know, certainly I've had, you know, I'm pretty aware that I've had I've had a privileged life. So, you know, I've had a lot of assistance, but I'd say that the only thing I would say, you know, I did was just, I was very dogged, you know, and to be an actor, you just have to, all actors, you know, I mean, we can be quite unusual people, but often when you see someone there, they've had to undergo a lot of rejection. They've had to hack, and most people I know who did it, they just had to carry on trying. So for me, I was in the school plays, and I used to get the it wasn't quite the tree, but like I'd get the smaller roles, and then just carried on. And by matric, I was head of drama, and I was in the school play Grease. So that was my idea of
wow.
I'm still absolutely. I was head of drama, but I wasn't given the role of Danny Zuko, man. It was like,
Who were you?
I was Kaniki, and I was like, come on,
That's a better character though.
No, I know, but I didn't get to be on the poster that was at the girls' school. I mean, that's what the head of drama said to me. He said, Kaniki's a richer character. And I was like, I know, but I want to sing Summer Loving. Like, come on, man. I got to sing Grease Lightning. But I was like, it was like Grease was my best. And one day I'm going to go back to singing lessons. I wasn't bad at school. I just haven't sung for 15 years. Because I would love to be in musicals. Like, have you watched The Greatest Showman?
No, I haven't.
Karen, get on. Like, have you watched Glee?
Yes.
Do you love it by any chance with all your heart?
Yeah, I know. I really like musicals.
I love that stuff. Okay, so anyway, like Grease was pretty much my favorite film. And then in grade 11, they're like, the matric play is Grease. And I'm like, oh my word, this is the heavens the stars have aligned. It's Grease. At that time, I had this thick black hair. I mean, come on. So, and I was head of drama. I was like, yes. And I remember Sandy, she had like done really well in like Pop Idols. Anyway, so I was Kaniki, which I really liked. My drama teacher was very supportive. But maybe one day I'll let go of it. But and maybe, as you said, was a richer character. And I did get to be in billboards later in my life. but anyway, I sorry?
Where's Danny now? What's Danny doing? Is he on billboards?
I don't want to be mean about him. He's a great guy. He's a great guy. He got into politics.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying he didn't deserve it. I think I just my gripe was that I had black hair, so that's not much of a leg to stand on, and he had dark brown hair. And he was a foot taller than me, and he was, from the feedback I heard, the best looking guy.
From the feedback.
Like all the girls afterwards said how hot he was. So he probably, oh God, the pain still.
Sorry. So okay.
Anyway, sorry, I'm going on. But basically, I studied drama. I went to Hidden Campus after school. And it was just a bit different. It was very theatrical based. And I think I have a lot of respect for the guys who do that course. But I always wanted to be in film. And I thought, let me do my own thing. And I think the hard thing with being an actor is that you have to put your fate in someone else. Like a director has to like you. And if there's any actors out there, really just carry on hacking. And 9 times out of 10, if you don't get a role, it has absolutely nothing to do with your acting ability. It's because they wanted someone with like a different nose, or, like they had an idea in their head. And what was so lucky for me was that YouTube arrived. So back in the day, if you wanted to be an actor, you'd have to write a script and get it approved by some, like production company, and the barriers to entry were high. So I started making YouTube videos, but the plan was always to be an actor. Like, and they were fun, and the YouTube videos, look, they're hit and miss. And some of them did very well, and some of them, but that's just the creative that, then putting yourself out there. I learned a lot. I got the thickest. There's nothing that I can read about me that will hurt my feelings. I've had every single, the comment section of the YouTube, like my heart is like impenetrable from things that people can say. And then, I was in adverts, and I have to say, like, I was always like, I will not let this dream die. But when you're 29 and your friends are like, oh, doing, legit stuff and doctors and architects, and you're like, hey, share my YouTube video. Like, it can sting and people can be mean. So for me, when I got that role in Tali's, I was just like, particularly the first season, it was just like, I can't tell you the relief, and I was like, even if I never have this experience, it wasn't about, I knew it would be successful. And like I said, I thought I'd probably get more work and stuff afterwards. But what it was really about was just like, like the hard work paid off. Like, it was all for something. So yeah.
So what attracted you to that project? Like,
I mean, look, Ari and Julia, who are behind it, Tali is Julia and Ari is her husband, who's a director. I mean, obviously they did Suzelle DIY. They are, the creme de la creme of production, and they had seen me in a web series I'd made, and then they'd seen me in a short film that I'd been in. And they said, look, we've got this idea, and would you be interested? And we workshopped it, and we did like a pilot. And I had a connection at Showmax because a web series of mine, they'd actually approached me to make it into a TV series, and it hadn't worked out. Like for my career, there's been, I can't tell you how many near misses or almost, so I was almost that guy there was, so, but I had this connection, and what one does is you make a pilot and you sort of shop it around. And they contacted Showmax, and then it then turned into Showmax's first thing. So I think in terms of what attracted me, like everything, it was just the best. It's the best thing in the world. I'm just so lucky. I'm like, sometimes I sit there and I'm like, not imposter syndrome, but I'm like, how the hell did I end up here? Like it's just such a blessing. Yeah. And I try, sometimes you're tired, but I try to always just sit there and be like, can you believe what you're doing? You're doing what you love and you get paid. It's insane.
The character of Darren is just like very subdued. Like, I mean, obviously knowing your public persona before the show. Like, I'm saying, like, for me personally, knowing that you were in it and then watching the show and seeing you playing this very subdued character was so interesting. So, like, is that sort of like, I don't even know what my question is. My question is...
it's interesting because, it taught me a lot. I think a lot of people who are drawn to acting and stuff, it's because they want to be seen. And certainly when I was younger, I wanted to be validated. And you'll find that with a lot of people who get into this industry, is it's like they're looking for that sort of. So for me, I always used to think I have to be the loudest. I have to be the most outrageous. And, I've spent a lot of time in my life working on therapy and working on myself. And I came to realize that you don't have to be the loudest person in the room to, and also that popularity doesn't actually fill that hole in your sort of, doesn't give you the validation internally. So my previous characters were always quite bombastic, very macho guys. And in reality, I'm not Darren. Like more I think much more assertive than him, but I'm not the sort of bombastic butt that I was in some of the other things that I did. So people would sometimes meet me and they'd expect me to be this kind of this butt, like, come, let's go, let's go beat up some guys. And then, you're just like, oh, I'm just sorry, I'm a normal person. And you see them look at you and like the experience of them like seeing who you are as a human being and then being disappointed. Like, it's like, I see you and I'm so big that you're just a human. And I was like, I'm just chill. I'm just gonna go, So it was actually great because if it were not for that series, I would have been typecast.
Yeah.
Secondly, and this is really credit to the, to the production team and to the writers, and was that I really learned that less is more, and that you don't have to be the loudest, you don't have to be the craziest character, and that in me being subdued and sort of grounded, I provide the foil for the other characters. So it was interesting, because the first time where I had to actually learn to be like, you don't have to steal the scene. In fact, rather let other people do their thing, and that it worked, and then the director said, just trust me. And at the end, when I watched the season 1, because you film it in completely mixed, like completely different order, I was like, oh wow, he was right, and for me it was just, I think, being subdued, or being, how should I say, a bit more, I'm almost like the straight character in terms of like I'm not supposed to be that funny. Occasionally I am, but that was also cool because it gave me a lot of acting space, because I can do stuff and I can be, I have a variety of stuff. So it was a really helpful experience. It's just like I say, like, man, it's just like I sometimes I still am like, I'm so lucky. I don't really know how it happens. It's just crazy.
So, like in the Baby Diary, Darren goes through quite an interesting character development with gaining self-confidence and his relationship with Liz. So, like, what did you think of that storyline? And
well, I'm just so stoked that you recognize that, because like I absolutely loved it. It was like,
I felt so proud of him. I felt like I knew him.
Yay!
I'm so proud of you, finally.
That I won't give away the spoilers, but as the sort of the conclusion, it was like, I think my character, people who rooted for me, myself, had been waiting for that moment for a long time, and I think what, once again, the credit to the writers was that, and I think TV itself has changed, and that story arc, I mean, that's a story arc that, if you think about it, is from, it's 18 episodes, because if you think about Darren in season 1, he's this like meek little, kind of very downtrodden dude. And then season 2, he's in a better space. He's still pandering to Les. And that's why it was like that development. I mean, I messaged the writers and I was like, just thank you. Like, I loved it. And, that moment where, I'm so glad that you saw that, because I don't read people's tweets, and I don't sort of, and most people will just, they enjoy the show, but they won't sort of often give feedback on like something as like you've done, like on the progress of a character, and for me, it was just incredibly vindicating. And I don't know if you remember the moment where I have a sort of a confrontation in the final episode.
Yes, of course.
Like that, for me, I read that and I was like, oh my word. And in my, when you're acting, you obviously have to take yourself into that space. And the quite a cool story is that, like, I was like, I want to look into camera, and like, it's a very quick look and the camera crew just got it. But in my mind, it was me saying to like everybody that's ever doubted me, like, I told you, I swear, like, I bloody told you. So I think obviously Darren's going like, ha, you see, like, like I did it. And although I'm not particularly driven by like proving the haters wrong or whatever, it was a very like, ha, so it is the most rewarding, 100% the most rewarding and vindicating acting experience of my life. Yeah. I'm so glad. Yeah.
I love like the little things. So like the fact that Darren is so nice that he would listen to the guy that's selling property. Like, I just, I love it. And like he's rewarded for that fact.
Yeah.
Listening to this guy ramble on, like,
yeah. Well, I love someone, who is discerning and who notice those things. So I think, and I'm not upset about it, but some of those aspects that you pointed out, I put a lot of effort into those small things, and it's like the little look and the sort of it's the less is more, and so when someone notices that, it's like, that's very, very gratifying, because it's like the small things and that little bit of extra work, but once again, the writers and Ari, the director, I mean, they knocked it out the park. Yeah.
So what is it like working with Julia? Like, you guys seem to have good chemistry.
She's just a consummate professional, her and Ari, her husband, are like an amazing team. It's just this crazy combination of talent. But what I always think, so I don't know if you watched The Last Dance about Michael Jordan. So I'm quite interested in these sort of documentaries on these very driven and successful sportsmen. But the one thing that Michael Jordan, so he was like the best of all time. And he says, he never asked anybody to do anything that he didn't do, which is what I try to prescribe, in terms of my life. And, we worked hard on that second season. It was 5 weeks, 6 days a week, 12-hour days. I was doing on Sundays, I was working for SA Rugby. It was stressful. There was a time of COVID. We were all so scared about COVID. And, you just start to get exhausted because your call time is at say 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. And then you're going to get home at 9, and you're going to, you have life and stuff. So you're not going to get 8 hours sleep. And after 5 weeks of that, you start to, but Ari and Julia, they worked so hard. And, they're both geniuses. And, I think what's also insane is that I just did the acting, and that was in itself quite a, I loved it, but it was, it took a pound of flesh. They edited, the turnaround time on that, what they did is it's unprecedented in terms of, they were doing 2 episodes a week. So we wrapped on the 12th of December, and they handed over something like 2 months later. And, there was so, I can't, overemphasize the ambition, but the success of what they pulled off. So working with them and working with Julia, we learned a lot. It was very professional. And, I didn't have a university training in acting. And what I learned from all the cast was a lot about acting, and I think Julia and I, we really just were let's do the best, let's make this the best we can. Yeah. So it was I got a lot from it. Yeah. I learned a lot, and it was, I really think my acting, it was, very, very helpful. Yeah.
So, so the other great romance of the show is between Darren and Rael.
Yes.
So, what is your relationship like with Glenn?
So Glenn, so Julia and I mean, we're it's very professional. I mean, obviously we all get on with each other, but Rael and I, Glenn, he was at school with me. Okay. So I know this oak from back in the day. And I mean, I was talking about my drama days. I still remember I was head of drama in matric. He's 2 years younger than me. And he was going around saying he was head of drama or something. So I was a matric, and I was the head of a house. I called him into my office and I said, you will not be saying this. I mean, and we've known each other over the years, and we have a really, really great rapport. In season 1, some actors are competitive. I didn't experience that on Tali's, but sometimes you'll be where guys, particularly say male roles, they don't want the other guy to Whereas Glenn sat down with me and spent an enormous amount of time like teaching me to act, because I went in there as a YouTuber, and we just had so much fun. And I still want to say I irritate Glenn, but not irritate him, but I'll just kind of go up to him and just sort of like say something ridiculous and then leave, or go and just bother him. But it's so fun. And then we have this like running joke, because he won't reply to my messages, and I'll like just say like he's forgotten about me now that he's more famous. And at season 1 of Tali's, I had more Instagram followers, and then I used to like as he just like he's nuked me, like he's just he's so much more famous than me. So he's oh man, it's just so fun working with him. And what's great is that our rapport is natural. And I think what I noticed in season 2 is that all the actors, we had a season already to understand each other. The season 1, it was like, boom, first day, act, go, work each other out, work out the relationship between the director. Whereas season 2, it was just like we knew each other. And Glenn and me, I mean, I always use like sports references, but I don't know how many people like follow rugby. And I always say it's like the fly half center Pollard and Dialendi, the combination for the South African backline, and that we just sort of we work naturally together, So he's a vibe, yeah.
So what's next for you?
So I have been there. I believe there might be I'm hoping that there will be a third season.
Oh yes.
I'm intent on hacking on. I would really like to pursue acting as far as I can, and I think South African TV at the moment is in the best space it's ever been. I think about, my Octopus Teacher was just nominated for an Oscar for editing. I know the guys behind that. The South African documentary Tracing the Sun, I think was the best production that's ever come out of the country, just in terms of, it's obviously it's sporting, but I mean, it was authentic. I think it was really groundbreaking, because I think South African viewers more and more, they want authentic content. So I think that it's a really good time for South African TV. And I'm gonna work and hack, and you don't know. And in time to come, obviously I enjoy being creative. In the past, I've done web series and stuff like that. So, there's always, and I did a master's in creative writing. So there's always that option of maybe coming up with my own stuff. But at the moment, it's been like a dream come true. I also work as a rugby commentator for SuperSport. And what I love about that, it's a bit similar to acting and writing, in that I love rugby, but I love words. And so I get on there, and SuperSport is a fantastic company to work for. Like, everyone is just so cool, and I just love sitting there and being creative. So I try to find new ways to describe a try, or I try bring in like a cultural reference to sort of whatever, like a contemporary South African pop. And so at the moment, I'm working quite busily for them, which is also wonderful, because I thought that was done. And now all of a sudden it's back, and I'm busy, and I'm flying up to Pretoria every couple of days. And that's very rewarding for me. And I've also been working with South African Rugby, where we're doing comedic rugby wrap up. And that's quite cool, because I think it's shifting. Sports is kind of in South Africa often very one-dimensional, and I'm a big believer that people believe they're interested in human stories.
Yeah.
So whether it's my commentary, it's like I'm not going to talk that much about the stats, but I'll talk about the person's life story. So this thing with SA Rugby, it's like we don't really talk about rugby. We just like have like memes and like clips from popular culture. So yeah, I'm just gonna carry on trying and going. And my main aim for 2021 is actually just to get more sleep.
Sounds legit.
So yeah, but I hope that my main thing is it's nice. I want to make people that have supported me proud, because I've had a lot of help, and a lot of people took chances on me and gave me opportunities when they didn't have to, or saw stuff in me when I didn't. So yeah, my biggest driver is to make those people, to reward them, to say thanks, for believing me. And I always think, like I said to you right at the beginning, if a show that you're in makes one person laugh, if it makes one person happy, then that's worth it. Yeah.
Okay, so our final question that we ask everybody is, was your first celebrity crush?
Oh, I mean, I've got a lot of celebrity crushes, and I go deep. I'm not like about their music. I'm about their life story. I mean, I'm not even going to get onto Justin Bieber, because I am a believer. Okay. And it's not because I'm happy that recently he's been putting out bangers, but it's his life story. My first, my first, definitely Spice Girls.
All of them?
Talk about. So no, not all of them, but I think it's quite an integral, it's probably one of life's big questions. Who was your favorite? When I was a kid, for a stage, it was sporty, but then it changed to scary, and it's stayed with scary. But then I didn't research their life stories. I was just like a kid who was in love with them. But a real celebrity crush was Carly Rae Jepsen. And this. It's crazy. So her song "Call Me Maybe" was it's like my favorite song of all time. I mean, we can objectively.
No, it's all her music is brilliant.
Yes, a woman of fine taste.
Latest albums that everybody just keeps ignoring, and it's just hit after.
Yes, yes, you are on the money, and so, you have the best taste. You've just can you just please make sure this stays in, that you literally everything that I love, you notice, and that the rest of the world doesn't notice. Why are people not celebrating Carly Rae Jepsen? You're great. So anyway, Carly, obviously objectively the greatest song. So I started following her, but what I really respected about her was that there's two things. Her music makes people happy. It's you feel good. And she got success quite late in her life, and she had to hack quite a lot to get to where she did. And she did "Call Me Maybe," and then everyone wrote her off like one hit wonder. And then she came back with "I Really, Really Like You." So anyway, she came to South Africa in 2015, and it was common knowledge that I was her biggest fan in the country. And I got to interview her. I said to the company, I was like, I will do whatever you want to promo it. And I got to meet her. And the best thing was, she was so cool. And it is the nicest when you meet. We all have heroes on different levels, and it's 50-50. It's sometimes you meet your heroes and you're devastated, but sometimes you meet your heroes and you are just elevated. And I met her, and she must have thought I was a bit crazy, because she's used to press conferences where they're like, Carly, can you tell me so what's your next pop? And I was like, Carly Rae Jepsen, you remind me that light outshines the dark. And I want to live in a world where people like you do well, and with people who make other people happy are rewarded, which is true. And she was so cool about it. I mean, I don't know, she thought I was insane. And I gave her a Springbok jersey. It was during the 2015 World Cup, and she came on stage in the jersey, and she said, I met someone really cool. And yeah, it was the best thing ever. I thought she might DM me after and we'd be best friends, but that we didn't go that far. But yeah, so that was my first like proper.
Oh, no.
And my dreams one day, if I'm famous, I will invite her to perform at the premiere of my movie.
I believe it. I believe it can happen.
Yeah, a lot of strange things in my life. When I think about being a pimply 13-year-old kid, I don't think I would have thought that I would be in a TV show. So, life's taught me that, anything can happen.
Thank you so much, Anton. This was lovely.
Karen, this was fantastic. Thank you I know I talk so much. I'm so sorry to your editor who will try to chop this up. Thanks to the listeners for putting up with the stream of consciousness waffling. This is how I am. I don't know what's going to happen when I am interviewed by scary press people who manipulate your words. But I just love this. And thank you for for talking to me. It was a really rewarding, it was great.
That was our chat with Anton. You can find him at I am Anton Taylor on Instagram. Tali's Baby Diary is available to watch on Showmax. I don't know why I ended that with a question mark. Okay, it's available to watch on Showmax. Okay, so we also chatted to Kevin Smith. Kevin is a legendary South African actor who's been on everything, literally everything. From Igoli to Isidingo. You guys know I'm an Isidingo stan. To Arden's Flay. And he plays the role of Glenn Fortune, the patriarch of the Fortune family and the owner of the jazz club, The Oasis in Skemerdans. Skemerdans is a 13-part drama series on Showmax created by our former guest, Amy Jefter, who's in episode 2 of season 2, and Ephraim Gordon. Rebecca, I think I kind of freaked Kevin Smith out because I was so excited to talk to him because
understandably so,
of Isidingo and a big fan of Frank Xavier, and Frank and Lolly were my Isidingo ship. So so he was like, okay, girl, I'm just normal, and I'm just almost in tears out here. But I played a pretty cool in the interview, and I think I did a good job. But yeah.
Nice.
Here's our chat with Kevin. So how are you? How was this quarantine COVID experience been for you?
I think it has been quite an eye-opener to have been part of something that we know is happening worldwide. So that this is not just an individual or a few people that are being affected by this, but this is something that is happening on a worldwide level. And watching how people have responded to it, I find it quite inspiring. For me, it has been a time to reflect, a time to look at myself, a time to ask questions of myself, a time to really engage with the things that are important to me. I think that pre-quarantine, people get lost in so many different things. Your focus gets taken all over the place, but quarantine really made you focus. It made you decide, look, what am I going to do with my time? It's not just time wasted, but time really focused on specifics. So it has been for me a time physically. I've had to just keep myself sane. I've had to train much harder than I would have if it wasn't quarantine. It's again, those things are the things you take for granted. Quarantine took all of that away from us. So we had to really get a taste for living with ourselves. So that was my experience of quarantine. It was a time to really reflect and get to know who I am and what are the things that are important to me.
So tell the listeners a bit what Skemerdans is about.
Skemerdans is about family, and I think that is the thing that we all relate to. And it's about family, and it's about power struggles within the family. I think that it really unpacks what happens when family is put under pressure, when there's a crisis in the family, and how do those different family members respond to that crisis. And again, what is interesting for me is it shows people who have inherent weaknesses, and those weaknesses are exposed through the crisis that happens in the family.
So what was filming like? Did you guys film under lockdown?
We did. We filmed under lockdown, so all the protocols were in place very strictly. And as much as it's an irritation, it is something that the last thing anybody wants to do is to have your shows shut down because you find that the coronavirus is somewhere in that. So I think it's important that we keep the measures very strict, and we were. I mean, we had twice a day someone would come and check our temperatures. You had to sign in the morning. You get a temperature check. There was a guy who would walk around with a spray and sanitize all the time. I've never been so clean in my life.
So
I think we were very good. I think that the production did very well as far as sticking to the regulations. And I think it makes a difference because it makes you feel, okay, these guys are taking care of what needs to be taken care of, and I can focus on what I need to do. So yeah, so you asked me a little bit about the experience of filming on Skemerdans. Yes, as much as under quarantine conditions, it was quite challenging, but as an experience, I think I was working with some really great actors. I think Ephraim is a wonderful director. I think Amy as a producer and as a co-director, I think they have two beautiful eyes and ways of seeing. And that was reflective in the process of being on set. So I think there was a very good energy on set because they set that up. I think it was important for them to create people feeling, we are doing something which is exceptional and we're going to do a brilliant job of it.
So tell us about your character, the character that you play.
He's a dreamer. On so many levels. He came from the poor side of the world. And I think that people who understand poverty have a greater appreciation for success because they are driven. And he's driven. He's driven to make a success of it. He starts, his beginning monologue, he talks about growing up in the streets, playing in the streets. And that was like all he had. And then going and having a dream of saying, I can make something of myself. And that's what he does. He makes something of himself. And he's the patriarch. So he really holds that masculine energy of the patriarchal figure within the family. And because he is so driven and so focused, I think he doesn't really have the sensitivity to understand how his behavior affects the rest because he is so driven and so kind of one-track mind. But I think he really loves his daughter. I think that relationship is a very strong and key relationship. Unfortunately, we don't really explore it as much as I think it would have been great to have understood more about the character. We don't really explore it, but he has very clear relationships. His relationship with his mother is a very key relationship. So as much as he's a patriarchal figure, his connection within the matriarchy is a very important one. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that answers my question. So what attracted you to this role? Like, why this one?
The first thing that you do when you read a script, it's about what are the textures. A script is something that's quite flat. It doesn't live until it comes off the page. But sometimes you can read a script that sparks your imagination. This script is what sparked my imagination. So when I read episode 1, I thought, it's so complex. There's so much that has been set up in that first episode that it titillated me. It inspired me. It sparked something inside of me, and that made me say, this is a story that needs to be told. So it always comes from that script. And then, of course, there's other elements that then come into play when you look at who are the people that I'm going to be working with. Both Ephraim and Amy, I have a huge amount of respect for. I think they're a force in South African film and television. I think they're a strong force. And then working with the caliber of actors that I got to work with, that is also another key. So when those elements fall into place, how do you say no?
So tell me, like, how did you find this role different from what you played before?
I'm heading towards my 60s. I always, as a younger actor, got kind of cast as the romantic leads, the kind of, smooth, suave, kind of romantic character. As I'm getting older, I find the characters that are being offered to me have a little bit more bite to them. They have a little bit more gravity to them. They have a little bit more weight to them. They've got a little bit more edge to them. And that's what's exciting to me. So I approach this character in that way of saying, this is an edgy man. This is a man who's always lived on the edge of his life. He has always pushed the boundaries. And for me personally, I find it's a time in my life that that's what I have to do. One never knows how much time you have left on this earth in this time. So it's important to grasp everything that you have, to seize every moment that you can and to make the most of it. So that's if I were to say, you asked me the question, what is different to the roles that I've played? I think it has to do with the immediacy of making every moment count.
So why do you think that people should watch Skemerdans?
Because there's some really damn fine actors in it. I mean, we've got a cast that I think it's appetizing. These are people who have been in the industry for a long time, and they new young talents that are coming in that are just as exciting. And I think we're showcasing. I mean, it's always difficult for me. I find, and I have to say this, Karen, I find it's a sad thing that we live in a country that has become so segregated, that we see things in terms of black and white and colored, and we've become so accustomed to looking at the world in such small little pieces. But I think it is important to tell stories that are colored stories. I think the whole idea of apartheid is, for me, the most horrible thing that ever happened to this country, and we need to break that down. But I also think it is important to tell stories from a very specific perspective. And this is a very colored perspective. And I think that's important. I don't even like the word colored. I mean, I find it's so ridiculous, because that was something that someone dreamt up and put it down on a form. And then now we're all still following along that road. I still believe we've got to break that down. But we have to tell stories from people that live in a particular grouping, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. And we're looking at those people of mixed race who came from a particular culture, and how we developed in a greater South Africa that has got so many other things that are going on. So that is the story we're telling. And I think it's important for people to watch it from that perspective, to get an understanding of how the people that we are talking about lived, breathed, and succeeded. So I think that's for me a key thing of why I think people need to watch.
I think on that point, a lot of people in the industry have said that they've seen a change in that now that they are, people are telling their own stories. So have you found more an authenticity in the writing that you've been getting, in the work you've been getting? Because having colored people writing for colored people is a little bit different than having a white person write for a colored person, for example. Have you been finding that?
Most definitely. I do think that there are people and writers and artists and entertainers who have the ability to understand intrinsically what people are going through. I think that's what we do. But to get writers, to get a voice from somebody who's grown up in that, who has eaten the food, who has the tastes, who has the smells, and that is what makes something authentic. It's not just saying I can tell a story because I've observed it and I know what it looks like, but it's to have lived it. And that is what the voices are that are coming out now, and the opportunities that are being given to writers to say, this was my own personal experience. And then when you give it to an actor who's also had that experience, it just adds a level and a layer to that. As a viewer watching it, this is authentic.
I remember, obviously, when you were younger, you were in a lot more roles where you were racially ambiguous. You weren't cast as like a colored character or something like that. Has that changed a lot as you gotten older?
I think I will. I think I will. I think I will always be ambiguous. I think that's what's interesting. And I think when you try to peg somebody to one thing, you're making a mistake. Because for me, one has a stereotypical idea of what colored means, and I would like to break that completely. I would like to say, don't think you know who we are. Don't think you know what we are. Don't think you know how we speak or how we react or what we've read or what our intellectual experience is, because it's far greater than what you could ever imagine. So don't try to pigeonhole me. I never want to be pigeonholed. I always want to break whatever mold I can in whichever way that I can. Even when we're talking about sexuality, I think we need to break down the stereotypical ideas of what is a man and what is a woman. I think we need to look at it, as I say, and this is what our show does, Skemerdans does. It has very strong matriarchal energy, a very strong patriarchal energy. But we're also seeing new energy coming, and that is saying we need to change. The roles are not what you thought they were.
So, okay, yeah, maybe we should talk about how was the cast? Like, how did you enjoy working with, the people that you've worked with before? And
yeah, Ilse and I, we've been man and vrouw in a couple of things we played, husband and wife in a couple of plays. So we have a very comfortable connection with each other. I think we're comfortable being close. And Ilse might tell you something completely different, but I find her, she goes into things with full heart, with full commitment. And for me to then have to work with that means that I've got to bring my game up. It doesn't allow you to get away with anything. You know, if you're on set with Ilse, then you've got to bring your game. You've got to bring your A game. There's nothing else. And then Vanette also, who plays my mother, is also, you know, she's a strong figure, you know, and she comes with all of that and all of that experience. So, you know, spending time with those strong women is, sure, it's exciting. It's a beautiful thing for me to share space with them, to share a screen with them.
I can't believe Vanette is playing like grandmother roles now. I can't.
I'm going to be playing grandfather roles, you know. It happens. One does age, you know. But I think, again, that's the beauty of the work that we do, is that you bring your experience, your life experience, to every role that you play. So, you know, I think Vanette she can be the beautiful femme fatale, or she can be the strong matriarchal grandmother figure that holds the whole family by the tight reins, you know. So that is the versatility of the actors that we're dealing with, who have a lifetime of experience and can play anything between, you know, 40 to 60, 70. But again, Karen, I mean, I think we need to also understand age is not what it was 20 years ago. So what you consider to be an old person, when they get to be 50, 60, that means they're an old person. That's not the truth. I think I can do anything that a 30-year-old or a 20-year-old can do. In fact, at this moment in time, I'm working on a show where I play an assassin. It's an action role. It requires me to be physically very on top form, you know, and it's not what you would say, this is a 60-year-old. It's not that at all, you know. So I think anything is possible. I don't think one is limited by age, by race, or by anything. One should never be limited. Those are limitations that other people might put on you, but it's up to you to change that.
So, okay. So tell me more about you. Was it like always your plan to be an actor?
It's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine. I'm working on a play at the moment. I love the theater. And when I started off as an actor, as a young person, thinking about what is it that I love, where's my passion lie, I always imagined myself that I would be part of a company of actors that did interesting work. There was a time in South Africa where we had we would travel. You would go to small towns, you would put on performances, you would go to the schools, you would put on performances. I remember being at school when there was a school's theater program that came to the school, and I watched that. Those were the things that captivated me and interested me in saying, how do we use the idea of theater to tell stories to people that can then make people think about things in a different way? So my dream, which I'd still like to hopefully follow, is to be able to take theater to people, to take live theater to people, to perform to people. COVID has told us it's a risky thing to do because we can't put a lot of people into a small space. So that's where live theater has really struggled. But I'm hoping that it makes a comeback.
And they can be creative about it, I suppose.
Exactly.
So of course most people know you as like Frank Xavier in Isidingo, but what was your favorite role that you've played?
It unfortunately was a very obscure part, and I don't think many people got to see it, which I think is a great pity. But it was a film that was made by director Daryl Root, who is doing quite a bit of work. And it came from a short story that was written by Ahmad Tagore, who passed just recently. It was a story that was called Job Man. And we made a film of that. And I think it was a role of a deaf mute man who came from a colored environment and was ostracized, pushed out of his community because he couldn't speak, he couldn't hear, and he was really just isolated. And it's a love story because he falls in love with one of the women. She falls in love. They have a child in the community, and he takes his child and his woman and he goes to make a life for his own, but he is hunted down by his own people. And he's also hunted down because the other parallel story is that he grows up with a white boy and they have a very strong relationship, which this white brother of his is the one that hunts him down and eventually kills him. So I've got to tell you, this is the other thing that seems to happen to me. I seem to die a lot in movies. I don't know what that's about, but I always end up getting killed, so I don't know what that's about.
I want to say that my favorite is will always be Meerlanders.
Yeah.
You get that one a lot.
Meerlanders is beautiful. I loved Meerlanders. I loved Meerlanders because, again, we were sitting in an unusual environment, and I had an opportunity to play on, to live on an island. We went to live on an island in the middle of the ocean. We spent, I think we had 10 days that we were completely away from the rest of the world. Everything that we had, the water, the food, was brought in because Saldanha was across the road from the island. It was Malgas Island, and it has the biggest bird colony is on this island of various different bird species, but particularly the gannet. So it was an experience to live in a world that very few people have an opportunity to experience. And that has been the most wonderful thing for me being an actor, is I've been given an opportunity to do things that most people don't get the chance to do. But Meerlanders was beautiful. And I have to just bring, because it's quite important for me, Meerlanders was directed by a very, very dear friend of mine, Gerrit Skoonhoven, who passed in October of last year at 62 years of age, which again just brought me back into the thing of life is short. We don't know when it's going to end. Make the most of the time that you have and really maximize and utilize everything that you can to make the most of the time that you have, because you don't know when it can end.
Sure. So, who haven't you worked with yet that you'd still love to?
Oh, yeah, that is a tough question, because I'm just seeing so much young talent that's out there that I think, I'd love to work with them. I can't say. I think of my peers, I think I've worked with everybody, But I think there's a lot of young talent that's coming up that I would really love to work with. And I'm watching on TV and I'm thinking these guys are great. I think Ardent's Play also exposed me to a lot of young talent. So yeah, you know, I can't pinpoint one, but there's so much young talent out there that I think I would love to have the opportunity to just spend time with them and make something exciting. I just finished working on something now with Monique Rockman and with Urshad Ali, who are in Zuidwester. It is a Silver Skermfees part of that is going to be in the competition. I worked with a fantastic writer-director. His name is Jerome Ulfermeyer. And again, I'm struck by the wealth of talent that we had. These are young actors that I was working with, and they are just fantastic. So I'm hoping for more opportunities like that. I think this is a very important opportunity for people, is making short films. I think the short film as a medium is giving writers, directors, and crew an opportunity to do interesting work that pushes the boundaries, because you don't have to necessarily be commercial and kind of fit into a commercial form, but it allows you to play. So the short form is fantastic. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of more of that happening, and exposing young writers, young talent, young actors, directors to a medium where they can tell their story in an interesting way. So the question that you asked me, who would I like to work with? Anyone in this industry is fantastic.
You said that you know, you've been seeing a lot of things on TV. So what have you watched recently that you could recommend or that you've enjoyed?
Well, I think that Kykenet, I think the Afrikaans industry is really interesting. I'm looking at, we did Spruce. I think Spruce was a very interesting storytelling. Again, Monique was in that, and looking at the idea of the supernatural. I thought that was a very interesting series. I think I like the legal aspect of Feinscript. I think Feinscript is also a very interesting show that is on there. And I find a lot of the short films that I've been watching, all the Silver Scarum stuff that has been going out, I've been quite taken by what people are doing and how experimental filmmakers are being. And I think with platforms like Showmax, it is also allowing new writers to come to the fore and giving people an opportunity to tell the stories. So as much as I can pinpoint specific things, I think it's important for us to be critical and to watch whatever is coming out, and to be critical of the work that we're seeing in order to improve the industry that we're in.
And I think that has changed a lot now that there's more content coming out, is that we don't have to be okay with everything. We can say, okay, this is where this one can do better. This is how this one has done well. And it is great. It's amazing that there is so much for us to watch now.
Correct. I mean, there's also a lot of stuff that, you know, you give it 5 minutes, give it 10 minutes and move on to something else. So you have to be, it again means that you have to put something on the screen that is excellent. It means that you can't be lazy and just think, you know, I can do whatever I want because there's just so much content. Everybody wants content. The competition is still very fierce.
So what's next for you?
So what I'm working on now is it's a telenovela, and it's for BET, and it's a show that's called Isono, which is again very interesting because it goes into the African continent. It's being broadcast, you know, I think you know BET, it is African content. So, and this is where I play a role of an assassin, and it's, you know, it's actor's dream to play an action hero, you know. so that's what's going on. You know, I get to play with guns. I get to be mean. I get to be like rough people up. I get to do all of those kinds of things. Which again, at my point in life, to be given that opportunity is just fantastic. And then theater again. So I'm back in the theater. I'm doing a show that opens in a week's time. It's my first love. theatre will always be my first love. It's something that I really could spend the rest of my life being involved with. And we're taking short stories and we're making visual. We're making a short story visual. And again, it gives you the room to play with something, because it's not a specific text. So it's about how do you physically represent something. And being on stage, you've got to use your body. You've got to be fit. You've got to be strong. You've got to be sharp. You've got to be creative. And unlike with a film or television where you can cut and you can close up and you can do all kinds of trickery, when you're on the stage, you're exposed. You out there, you've got to be brilliant because there's nowhere to hide. So there's that's happening. And then looking into the future, I'm hoping that I can realize that dream of getting a company of actors together who can take live theatre work into South Africa and perform for people that don't get the opportunity to see live theatre. I think that could really be something I would love to be able to make a reality.
Oh, I almost forgot to ask. So do you have any Club Galaxy memories?
I do actually. I could get out there and do, my John Travolta number. I remember bell bottoms. I loved the bell bottom and I loved the 3-piece suit. I thought it was fantastic, and that was me. When Galaxy for me was 80s. When 80s was staying alive. 80s was all about disco. So Galaxy was hot. I don't have specific memories. I just, I know myself. I used to wear platform shoes, bell bottoms, 3-piece suit. Ek was uitgevat. I can tell you. I love dressing up. I love looking good. I love being out there and, feeling I'm in charge of my world. So, if I have memories of the Galaxy, it's that. It's being in a beautiful world that was in a way so much more innocent than it is now. I think the kind of things that we got up to in the 80s, we wouldn't do it now. Too many crazes out there.
Yeah, no, definitely. So this is the question we ask everybody, but who was your first celebrity crush?
Celebrity crushes. I can't even think who. I can't come up with anybody. I just remember as a young actor, the people that I really admired when I saw them and had the opportunity to work with them. Marius Weyers and Sandra Plinsloo and Charlene Sophie Richards. As a young actor, getting the opportunity to work with them, those are people that I idolized. And if I were to say what my role models were, those were people that I saw on stage. Those were the people that I would love to have thought, I find the way that they represent themselves as actors, I would like to model myself on those kinds of actors.
And you did end up
and I did. I got the opportunity to work with, I got the opportunity to spend time with Charlene, with Marius, and with Sandra. All of those people I got the opportunity to spend with. So I was able to realize my idols, to be able to spend time with them.
Okay, Kevin, thank you so much. This was lovely.
Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for agreeing to do this. I mean, this is wild for me. Anyway, to talk to you, but
it's been such a pleasure for me to speak to you. And again, you took me for a walk down memory lane, and I think that Skemerdans as a production, I haven't seen it. I think you've watched the first episode. I haven't had the opportunity to see it, but I know in my heart that it is a piece of exceptional work that is coming out of a country and out of a culture that we need to hear a lot more from. As I say, I hate the idea of the segregation that we've had to live under, and that we're still struggling to understand. But I think we've got some really unique voices that come from that particular sphere, from that particular culture, and we're getting to learn a little bit more about those people. And I think it's about time, because I think that those stories can travel across the world. I don't think we are limited to only a South African audience. I think that we can appeal to an audience across the world, and people will be extremely taken by the stories that we have to tell from a South African perspective.
Thank you so much. That was our interview with Kevin Smith. Skemerdans is now available to watch on Showmax. And now it's time for our favorite segment of the show. Rebecca, what have you been crushing on?
Hello. I've actually been crushing on Showmax.
The whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Okay. Interesting. This is a very Showmaxy episode, I must say, because we have Tali's Baby Diary on Showmax, we have Skemerdans on Showmax. This is like if they could have sponsored this episode, that's how Showmaxy it is.
That would have been brilliant. What I actually watched this week was Swirl.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and you did there. I had proper moments in that because it took me back in the day where I used to watch my mom actually swirling her hair, and like that sort of the scene where the mom is brushing the girl's hair, and that sound and the music that came along with it was so like it hit me. Some parts are super cheesy, but overall, man. I don't know. I'm just happy that South Africans are making good stuff and telling stories that like haven't been told. You laugh.
Similar to that, like so I've obviously been watching Skemerdans, and this feels like the obvious answer, but before the interview with Kevin, I'd only just seen one episode, and then this weekend when it came out, I watched the rest of the 12 episodes, and I was so engrossed in it that I was I don't know, I just sort of felt like kind of like lost in that world, which is weird because it's a world that we know, but it was also so brilliantly told that it just also felt like someplace new. And the story is so interesting, and like it really did keep me guessing until the end. It's so funny. Like the whole show is like based around like the Kevin's character Glenn dies, and like what happens to the family after that. So I didn't know that before I watched the first episode. So when I spoke to Kevin, I was like, I was so disappointed that you died, and he's like, Kevin, not as disappointed as I was. And I was like, it's so true. It's so true. But yeah, it's really good storytelling. But yeah. And also like, so guys, so I've been watching a lot of stuff lately, and I've been watching a lot of stuff that I love. So we obviously don't have enough time to talk about everything on the show. So join our discourse group, because as we're watching it, we're discussing it, we're talking to other people who also, so we like over the last week we spoke about in the discourse group The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We spoke about Shadow and Bone. We spoke about The Flight Attendant. So, join in, chat to us. Let's hear what you're watching as well. And then, some recommendations for me. Also, next week I'm going to start shouting out members of the Discord group. I think that's cool. So anyway, so that's all from us. You can find me at Karen Walby on Instagram, at Karen Walbys with an S on Twitter, and sign up for my newsletter, Wildest Dreams, wildestdreams.substack.com. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube at What's IGN Crushing On. Our Love Island roundtable is up there now. It was a lot of fun. Chaos, but a lot of fun. And also you can find us on Discord this week. The podcast can be found at Crushing On Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can find more information about this and all our other episodes at our website, crushingonpodcast.com, and send any feedback to crushingonpod@gmail.com. Join our Facebook group, Crushing On Club, where we chat about the show, celebrity news, recommendations, the whole shebang. Let us know what you think about what was discussed in this week's episode by sending us a voice note or email to crushingonpod@gmail.com. The show is produced by me, Karen, and Rebecca Barches. The show is edited and engineered by Rebecca Barches. Our logo was designed by Nathifa Maroof. and the show was created in partnership with IGN Africa. If you like the show, tell everyone that you can any way that you can. Keep up to date with all our episodes by subscribing to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And please rate and review the episodes on Apple Podcasts, as it helps others find the show. We'll be back next week with another in-depth conversation with a pop culture lover. See you then!